This is a concern that involves life or death. It's an activity that involves going into a hostile environment where there's no air to breathe, the visibility can drop to zero at any time, and there's always a threat of hypothermia. The activity has a very good safety record without the benefit of government laws and regulations. And of course, I think you've all figured out by now I'm talking about scuba diving. There are almost no government rules regulating the sport of scuba diving. There's no licenses issued, there's no sanctioned training programs. You couldn't get a license if you want one. There's nobody from the government that issues one. Just imagine for a second, though, if Jacques Cousteau was about 40 or 50 years late in developing the aqualung. Let's say he invented it today. The calls for government rules and regulations would be deafening. We must have a government department not only to pass regulations on diving, but to enforce them. We need the government to issue licensing for the diving. We need them to make sure that proper training is given out, that's only government-sanctioned training, and so on, and so on, and so on. Few would believe that the diving community could develop their own rules and enforce them themselves. People would cry out for the government to do something. They would say, there ought to be a law. You should be getting this by now, right? Of course, in hindsight, which is always 20/20, we know they'd be wrong. There's no need for laws and government rules to regulate scuba diving. The diving community developed their own programs for training and certification of divers. There are certification and training programs for open water divers, deep divers, cave divers, and a whole other litany of divers. They're all very extensive. They're all very formal. You have to take written tests. You have to pass practical applications in the water to demonstrate the skills. There's no law that prevents you from doing so. But without a valid C card, you are not going to be able to rent a tank of air, or you're not going to get one filled. Now, I say that maybe if you tried for a long, long time, you may find someone somewhere, but I would tell you it's very, very highly unlikely, if possible at all, that you can get a scuba tank filled with air without showing them a valid C card. Again, that's without the benefit of a single government law or regulation that says they have to do that. So it can be done. The next time you're told there ought to be a law, remember the scuba diving example. Give that right back to them. Say, this is something where we're talking about a situation where people can die. So I ask you, from a government perspective, what is more important, that we regulate scuba divers or people who cut our hair? Has anyone ever died of a bad haircut? I don't think so. Yet we have a whole board of barbers. So laws and government rules are not the only solution, and in most cases, they're not the best one either. Thomas Jefferson said a long time ago, having always observed that public works are much less advantageously managed than the same by private hands, I have thought it better for the public to go to the market for whatever it wants, which is to be found there. That was true then, and it's still true today. As I said, there are some legitimate functions for the government, but trying to solve all problems for all people is not one of them.